Yeah, we just bought a home in London and are going to, in fact, we're going over next week. We'll be there for the holidays.
We're going to discuss
So
that. Okay. Hey,
you can,
everybody. It's Tina Hogan Grant here with my Cuppa A Natter. This is a bonus chat that I'm excited to do. I do this every other week on a Monday, but we are doing this one this week. And tonight I have amazing authors Stephen Manchester and Jerry Lathan. How are you gentlemen doing this evening?
Well, good. Thank you for having
great.
us, Tina.
I am excited
Thank
to talk to you. We are going to be talking about your latest book, You Will Be Peter, which actually launches tomorrow. So this
Yes.
is the eve of the launch. I am super excited to have you here tonight on this special night. And I have read this book, and we're going to go into how I enjoyed this immensely. But before we get started on the book, You Will Be Peter, I would just like to go to both of you. I'll start with you, Stephen. If you can just give us a little background about yourself, anything you want to share.
Yeah. So, as you know, I served in the first Gulf War. Not an easy tour of duty for me, and I made myself a promise: when I get home, I'm going to chase my dream down, become a published author. Rejection rate hovers around 97%. It took me a long time, but I finally kept that promise to myself. And all roads lead to now. And I, it's funny, you can't connect dots when you're younger, but now that I'm a little bit older and I look back, I'm supposed to be here, right? And I feel blessed to be here.
Congratulations. And also, thank
Thank
you
you.
for your service. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for
I,
your
I
service.
appreciate that. Thank you.
And Jerry, can you just give us a little background to yourself also?
Sure. First time author. Writing about the life of Simon Peter, the Apostle Peter, has sort of been a lifelong pursuit of mine. For over 10 years, I've been doing the research and digging in deep to find the most out possibly that I can about his story and bring it to life. And the objective really is to tell the story of this really unique individual. My career is in historic restoration. I'm a contractor by trade, but we focus entirely on landmark buildings, churches, monuments, that type of work. So we spend a good bit of time in historical structures, historical research to do the proper type of restoration to an important landmark building. So I'm a fan of history, love it, and have always enjoyed it. So that convergence with my faith is a natural place to look.
That is incredible. What a fascinating career. I love history. And as you know, I'm from England, and that's one of the things I miss about England is the history. Because this country is what, 250 years old? It's not very old.
Yeah,
And you go back
babies.
to England
Right.
and you see the castles and the monuments. That's one thing I do miss. And you mentioned Jerry, before we went live, that you recently bought some property in England.
Right. My wife and I just bought a home, a flat in central London, where I'm sure you're familiar. We're right near King's Cross, St. Pancras Station. For my writing, research, and career, it's actually wonderful. I'm just 2 blocks from the British Library, one of the greatest libraries in the world. And so we went to London on our honeymoon 45 years ago, quite a while now. And we've been going back repeatedly since, nearly 40 times probably. And we finally just said, we want a vacation home there. We want to live part-time there. So it's also turning out to be quite the writer's retreat for me. I'm next book like that. So yeah, we love England. We love all things Britain. I see you're from Yorkshire. York is a favorite place. By some oddity, I was actually born in a small town in Alabama called York, Alabama.
Oh, okay.
Never lived there really, but I was born there. So
Well,
a
congratulations. Yeah,
little
I was brought up
serendipity,
in
a little,
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was brought up
that's
in a little town called Iclamore, and it's buried in the Yorkshire Moors. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful writer's retreat, by the way. If you ever get up to York, but York is beautiful too. It really is. It's gorgeous. So congratulations on your new purchase. You've been to England more than me since I've been here in the States. You really have. I'm joking. I really am. I do want to pause for a minute before we talk about this wonderful book, You Will Be Peter, and say hello to our audience. We have a few people joining us. Again, Stephen Manchester and Jerry Lathan are joining me this evening. And if you have any questions for them, go ahead and pop them up in the comments. We have Barbara Miller. She is here from Florida. And then we have Darlene Johnson. She says hello. Heather Skeeter. I'm sure some of you might know some of these people, especially Stephen. You're on
Yeah,
Facebook
Heather.
quite a bit.
Right.
And then we have oh my, I need my glasses. Kathy Driscoll, and then Lori Chasco. So if you have any questions, go ahead and put them up. Elaine Sapp is here. I just saw her here. There's Elaine and Karen Geely. Okay, let's start with the beautiful cover of this book. The cover is, I was in awe when I saw this cover. You Will Be Peter. Absolutely gorgeous. Did you have any say in this cover? And I also want to know who designed it.
Jerry, that one's yours.
Ah. You got me, Jerry? Uh-oh. Did we lose Jerry?
Yeah, I think he might be frozen.
You,
Okay.
just back on. I missed.
That's okay. Oh, now we
Yeah.
just lost him completely.
Yeah, he'll come back. We'll continue, Tina. Right. So the cover was actually there was great input by Jerry's wife and his daughter, Brittany. So they ended up working with the publisher to get this done. And I agree with you. It's one of the nicest covers I've ever seen.
It's absolutely.
I mean, things gorgeous, but it was Terry and Brittany that had some significant. Jerry, if you want to add to that.
The cover.
Oh, I think you covered it, and frankly, I missed a good bit of that. But yeah, I love the cover. I love the reflection and the implication of the young man Simon and the older man Peter shown in the waters below, and the color I think is very gripping. I hope it's. I hope everyone enjoys it.
It really draws you in, the colors and everything, and I think it's really clever how you had the young. There it is.
And the wrap too, right? When you look at the wrap of the Sea of Galilee, absolutely
It's
gorgeous.
just really clever.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, I was surprised when Jerry was introducing himself. This is his first book. This is your first time being an author. How did you two come together to connect, to write this book together? And why did you decide to co-author together? I'll start with you, Stephen.
I was actually contacted by my publisher, Lou Aronica, who said there was a gentleman in the South who was looking to do a book on Peter. So as a man of faith, obviously my interest was incredibly piqued. Once, I had one conversation with Jerry, I knew that we were going to end up doing this. I mean, it was, he had done so much research already. I flew down to Mobile, Alabama, to where he lives. We spent a week together, holed up in his cabin, right out in the woods for a week, which was amazing. And we did some storyboarding, for 10-hour days, and really got a big chunk of that done. So when I got back on the plane, I kind of knew the way that we were going to work together, and it's been a fantastic collaboration.
It's amazing. And can either one of you can decide who wants to answer, but can you give us just a little background to the story?
Sure. You mean, the background of the story. I think the story is meant to place the reader in the position of Simon and let you walk along with Jesus and see how these events would unfold if you were there. And so what I really had in mind and always wanted to do was bring this story to life. And I really went looking for the story. Frankly, I bought every book I could find on the topic to try to learn about the life of Simon Peter. I got some of the facts, but the storytelling wasn't there. It was always some form of liturgical teaching or presenting him in some sort of spiritual context to try to make an argument for faith or something. And what I really wanted was just to tell the story. Just this is an interesting story. Someone who's as normal as all of us, but wants to, but is thrust into a set of events with his friends that really are epic, life-changing, and they're still resonating down through history 2,000 years later. Mm-hmm. How that came together was what I was looking for. And honestly, through some background in filmmaking, for a number of years I was involved in a large studio operation and saw how films are made and really became interested in the quality of the story as the central theme. And I thought, what better story there is. So some of my friends in the industry said, well, buy the book, figure it out, and we'll write you a screenplay. When I couldn't find the book, the screenwriter said, well, then I guess you're going to have to write a book. So that was about a decade ago, and I set out to write the book.
And here it is. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Well, I read this book. The writing is beautiful. Number one, it's very descriptive. But what drew me in, I'm not a big religious person. I'm not. But what drew me in is the style of the writing. This is an ancient story that's been around for thousands of years. But the way that you wrote it for modern times.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way that it's been written, it would attract the younger generation. And retelling the story the way that you did, I think it's just brilliant.
Yeah.
It really is brilliant. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really did.
Thank you, Tina. I mean, it was really, really important that we get the timeline accurate.
Mhm.
And we did. I mean, we spent a lot of time on this, from studying antiquated maps to breaking down the Gospels and putting those puzzle pieces in order. But it really was all about making it real, relatable,
Yeah.
having you smell, hear, feel that what it must have been like 2,000 years ago to walk with Jesus and his disciples. So it was a joy. I mean, there was a lot of work involved here, but it was joyful work, right? It really was.
Oh, I can just imagine.
Yeah.
And of course, you know that I was a commercial fisherwoman prior to my author career. So I really enjoyed the fishing aspect of the book too. You
Right.
really did a great job. I felt like I was right there. It was excellent done. And you said you did a lot of research. When you said you did a lot of research, what kind of research did you find the hardest? The hardest and the most surprising?
Well, I think probably the hardest was the timeline. Frankly, getting the timeline is so hard. The Gospels are not written in chronological order. They're semi-chronological, but they're not synced together. So there's not a lot of resources out there to help you with that. I finally found a book by a gentleman named William Thomas Walsh called The Apostle Peter. And that really helped. That unlocked the key, because there's so many events that appear in only one of the Gospels or not in the others. And so the interspersion of those and getting them lined up, like I always tell the story, when was the woman at the well? Well, it was actually in the first year, on their first road trip, so to speak. And they were coming back from Jerusalem. But, it only appears in the book of John. And so the first three Gospels omit it. And so John opens his telling of it with the phrase, Peter and the rest had gone to town to buy supplies. So why does that belong in the Bible? What's that got to do with anything? The answer is because the first three books had left it out. And so Peter wasn't here to see it. And John's telling you why Peter didn't include it in the earlier accounts. So John is inserting that detail. And then you know that it happened on that return trip to Capernaum and where it occurred. And so everybody knows the story, but where they're placed, the centurion from Capernaum is a very, very important detail. It happens right at the very beginning before Jesus ever arrives in Capernaum. So this guy who's the authority, he's the power, he's the military ruler, rides out and enlists Jesus's help to save his son's life. So by the time Jesus arrives, people have heard of the miracles, and he saved this guy's son who, if he says you're done, you're done. So Jesus has endeared himself to the local power structure and made himself famous as they come into town. So of course Simon is rather enjoying that. He's coming in town with the big guy. It's always nice to be in the aura of a celebrity. And so that's how the story unfolds. I think getting that timeline and finding these nuances and wringing them out of the scriptures, that was, for me, I think that was probably the toughest part.
How about you, Stephen?
I'll agree with that. I mean, for me, a lot of it doesn't make sense until you put it in that order, right? Because one story builds on the next, and then you can kind of see, Jesus's plan unfold as well, right? I mean, for most of this journey, these guys had no idea what he was talking about, right? I mean, so what I love about Simon Peter is he's completely flawed, right? But he also has the faith of a child. So what changed for me is as soon as we figured out, or I should say, you know, and Jerry knew this, but for me, oh wait a minute, Andrew is Simon's brother, and Simon's best friend is John, whose brother is James, and the four of them fish together on the Sea of Galilee. So there's your fellowship. That's, you know, your four brothers. And once we started to build those characters and endear those to the reader, then all of a sudden you're walking along this troop with them, right? And for me, it just, you know, it took off,
It
absolutely
just
took
took
off.
off.
But it's the point of view, right? I mean, Jesus is such a magnet in every story that I'm not going to say we're going to remove him because everything he says and does, Peter sees that. But, you know,
Right.
90% of this story is through Peter's point of view.
Yes.
And what I love about it, Tina, honestly, is I'd be scratching my head through most of it and turn it to my brother Andrew or my best friend John and saying, I don't understand what he just said, right? So, and I think that's what makes it real and relatable for us.
Totally.
Yeah,
It really does. I wanted to ask you about the co-author. I've never co-authored with anybody, so this intrigues me.
yeah.
Um, Stephen, you have written many books. Is this the first co-author book you've
It
written?
it is, yeah, it is. And I'm going to tell you, it's a lot of people will tell you that co-authorships don't work, and I'm not just saying this because you know we're on this show and Jerry's here, but it works. It definitely works, right? Once you figure out what your role is and what his role is, and I came in and it was like, all right, this is what I need to do and I need to deliver on this. We ended up getting into a rhythm, which was incredible, right? So we worked on the storyboard together. I go away and write, you know, kick it back, and hey, listen, you need to change this, do that, and then he would inject some of the writing. He even went out to Israel to
Oh,
do some
wow.
research, and yeah, and that just lay. So it's like, you know, it's like a painting, right? You just keep layering on, and we were able to work together in that sense.
That's because I was going to ask you, how did the writing, how did it work? Because some authors, when they co-author, some will write one chapter, another will write another chapter,
Yeah,
but it sounds like you coerced on
yeah,
all the chapters.
we went back and forth, and we really there was an ebb and flow to it, right? That just worked, you know, and I was able to put, you know, my stamp on it. He's able to obviously put his stamp on it. So, you know, I even for as long as I live, I'll tell you, this was a collective work. I mean, this was as close to, um, I don't want to say perfect, but this was an amazing collaboration. It
I
really
think you
was.
did. Yeah, I can't say it enough. You did. I mean, this is one of the books, and I have to say, I was surprised how much I was drawn into the story and how much I
Yeah,
enjoyed it. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you because I said I'm not big religious person, and
yeah,
I was skeptical about reading the book. But I've known you. I admire your work. I admire you, and I wanted to read it, and I was drawn in right away,
yeah.
right away, and I was very surprised, and it gave me it opened up my eyes a lot to the sacrifices, the redemption, the courage. Just a really, really eye-opening of a book. And
Yeah.
it's one that will stick with me. And it's also one that I would read again.
Well, that's great
Well, I
news.
was about to say that, Tina. I think you'll find people will read it again. One of our
Yeah.
beta readers
It's a book
told us that
that,
he's read.
yeah, you can
Yeah,
put aside maybe for a year, not even that. I'm ready to read it again right now, to be
And
honest,
come
after
back to
talking
it.
about it.
Yeah.
But it's a book that I will never get tired of. There's a handful of books, maybe a little bit more, that I keep, right there that I want to read this again. And this is in that library now
That's
because
fantastic.
I really enjoyed it. But I do want to pause a minute. I see some questions I want to bring up from our readers. Virgil Lane would like to know, how long did it take you to write this book?
from the time Stephen and I sat down together until now has been about 2.5 years. We were really finished with the story in a little over a year, and then copy editing and polishing. But I had been researching and writing for 10 years before that. I told you I had a background in film,
Mm-hmm.
and I had and still have a a screenplay that I saw and see in my head all the time, and that was the really guiding light for the story. Getting the details that allowed Stephen and I to pull it together. But to add to what he said, it really began with the first 2 or 3 chapters I had written by hand. But I'm not a professional writer, and I knew Stephen was very good at it. I had I had interviewed a number of other writers, frankly. I contacted publishers, I contacted a number of people. And I'll just tell you this. This morning we were talking about the details and some of the harmony that came out of it and how well it works. And my wife said, Stephen's the perfect partner for you in this. It's like, it's like a beautiful harmonic duo singing a song. There's two voices, but they blend together. And Stephen's storytelling skill, the vision and the research and the understanding of this character that I saw in my head, I think you see it now on the pages.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. It is. And then Lori Chasko, I'll start with you, Stephen. You can both answer. She wants to know, which characters do you relate to the most?
Well, I don't want to steal Jerry's thunder on this, but I'll be in agreement with him. So it's the protagonist. It's Peter, right? I love, love, love that Christ chose Peter with all of his flaws, right? Because he's the everyman, right? And it gives all of us that hope that, with faith and the grace of God, right? We can get through it as well. So I love that he stumbled through all of it. I love that, he humbled himself. I mean, there's so many characteristics about him that I admire. But there's no perfection here, right? He wasn't a Pharisee. He wasn't an educated man. And I'll let Jerry fill in the rest on there. But I think we're in agreement. It's Peter there.
Oh yeah. Well, the foundation of it is that this is one of the most impactful people who's ever lived. And people who read biographies and read the stories of the founding fathers and so forth, Tina, it makes sense that even if you're not deeply rooted in faith or bring a faith tradition to it, it's still an interesting story. You mentioned the United States is a couple hundred years old. Peter's story is 2,000 years old.
Yeah.
2,000 years later, we're talking about it. 200 years later, 4% of the U.S., 4% of the population of the world is American. It lives in the United States. 40% of the globe are Christian or affiliate with a Christian church. So 4 out of 10 people, 2,000 years later, it's exactly 10 times more impactful, if you will, than George Washington. He was the leader among all of those group of founding fathers, and Peter is singled out by Jesus, never questioned by the rest of the group, that Peter is the central figure. So yeah, he's the most important because we can all relate to him. He's such a goofball. Sometimes he gets things so wrong and he messes up so bad, but he's trying. And I think the character of Jesus is so patient, but yet scolds him and corrects him and says, Simon. You can hear when your mother uses your full name.
Yeah. Yeah, you're in trouble.
Yeah, and he says that to him. Peter gets out of the boat to walk on water, and he looks down and doubts, and Jesus says, Simon, why did you doubt? I can just hear it. So Simon Peter but all their characters are great. They play a role and build the story.
Yeah, and you did a wonderful job of bringing them to life. And the dialogue, too.
Thank you.
The dialogue was just exceptional.
Right.
And when it came to the dialogue, did you both kind of go back and forth with the dialogue?
We definitely did, right? So it was, whether I started something or Jerry started something, we were back and forth on it. It was really important to understand the characters before you get into the dialogue, right? So when we were in the cabin, for that week, it was like, well, who is James, right? And it's kind of vet that out. So the more that you know about James in your own head, and as you're writing this, the easier it is to understand how he's going to act or react, right? And it was all based on that first week where we really laid the foundation for the characters and what their personalities were like, both good and bad. And then the dialogue follows, right? So if Peter says something to Andrew, obviously Andrew's going to answer this way, right? Because that's the way that we've kind of laid that out. So I think we're as close as we could have gotten, to be honest with you. Like when you look at, and I love the dialogue. I love that fellowship. Even the times where Jesus looks over at them and smiles or he laughs. I just love that because, to me, that brings it all to life. I mean,
it puts the reader right in the story.
Yeah.
I love using dialogue in my books because there's so much you can express through dialogue. There really is. So I was really impressed with the dialogue, and I enjoyed it too.
Yeah, we took a bit of license with the internal dialogue, but I think that works as well. And I think most readers are really going to appreciate that because with the internal dialogue, which we throw in italics, but if Peter has as a thought, right, it's so important to share that with the reader because now you're getting, I mean, you can't get any deeper than that, right? So we used quite a bit of that as well, and I think it was effective.
It was, yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
And a couple more questions for you. I'm going to pull up some comments too. I like some of the comments I'm seeing. There's a comment that I like. It says, Lisa Murray says she can't wait to read this
Lisa.
book. And then we have another one. Darlene Johnson says, I really want to read this book. Where's that question I just saw? Okay, here we go. Karen is asking, did the characters talk to either of you? And Jerry, do you want to start with answering that one first?
Oh, yes. I hear their voices. I see the character development is a part of the role they play. Is actually, it's all there in the scriptures, in the four gospels and the book of Acts. You know, James, to take a character, James is sort of the quiet, steady guy who stays somewhat in the background. One of the big clues is, you know, years later, James is chosen as the bishop of Jerusalem, and he'll be the head of the church in Jerusalem. Why is that? Because James is always the one who stays home, tends to the knitting, takes care of the fishing, and he's not along for the very first trip because he's dropped the guys off, taken the boat back home, and gone fishing. He's the first character you meet when Simon goes down to check and see how the night's fishing was. His brother Andrew, who's very passionate about John the Baptist, and his best friend John are not there. So you see these characters one by one get introduced, and I think that their personality is clearly expressed. And yes, I hear their voice. I hear it when I read the scripture. I try to listen for the emotion, for the inflection, for the response, and not just read it as dry verses out of the Bible, but live in their life and see what it would have been like. Like when Jesus says the name of the book, you will be Peter.
Mm-hmm.
You will be the rock. You are Simon, you'll be the rock. And no one's ever said that to you. No one's ever met you the very first time and said, oh, you are Tina.
Right.
You're going to be someone else. And if they did, you and your best friend would have a conversation about it right after that. Your friend would say, what was that?
What was that about?
Yep. Yeah, so Andrew and John have that conversation as they walk to Cana, to the wedding, to the first scenes. They're going, what was that? And John is always kind of the steady hand. He says, well, I don't know. I guess we better go along and find out. But Peter's like, what does he call me this for? Mm-hmm. So, yes, they talk to me very much.
Love that. And Stephen, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, they were talking to Jerry, much earlier than they were talking to me. But once I jumped in, absolutely. I mean, I think that good stories make people think, right? But great stories make them feel. And, we aim for the heart on this, right? So, and I'll give you just one example. As we were writing The Wedding at Cana, you as the reader, hopefully feel like you're right there with the disciples, the apostles, right. And you're meeting people, and you meet Jesus' mother for the first time. So they embrace, and it's very, detailed in the way that we wrote it. But I could feel it, right, when the way that they met, because I know somewhere down the road she's going to be taking him down from, helping to take him down from the cross and holding him, right? So you're planting a seed that's going to come to fruition much later, and it's a very familiar story. People know this story, but to put you in there and create that emotion. That was the trick with this book. It wasn't about, there's been a lot of books written, on biblical characters, but I think with this book, we really tried to bring it to a story. This is a story. We're not trying to, you know what I mean, like challenge anybody's dogma or their belief system. This is a story.
Right,
and
exactly.
if you don't like faith-based stories, but you like historical fiction, this is a story for you, right? So it's about developing those characters, getting those characters to the point where they can start to tell the story for us. And that's that emotional endearment, right? Where you feel connected to them.
Yeah. And you also show other sides of Peter, Simon, that are not in the Bible. But what I enjoyed about it was, number one, you put me right there. And you took me on a journey of 3 years where I really, really got to know, especially Simon Peter. and
Right.
the other characters too. But you wrote it in a style that is relatable to my generation, my kids' generation.
Right.
You know, people that pick up a Bible, you know, it's hard to stay focused because of the
It
language that's used. The way this book is written, you have my full attention. And
right.
that's why I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, thank you,
Well,
Tina.
thank you, Tina. We also, I'd like to point out, I saw a question just pop up a moment ago about what characters that were harder to write for. I think after some feedback from a lifelong family friend, I thought about, she brought up how the women in the story almost certainly played a more important role than what's actually recorded in the books, because in the day, the men were who wrote the books, and the men were the people that they talked about. But I really believe, and we went to great lengths to try to make sure that we include the role of the women, because it was very
Right.
important.
Mhm.
Simon's wife is a crucial part of his life. He's thinking about her when he's not there. He's explaining what he's seen when he comes home. He's doing what anybody would do to their spouse, and asking her for her support. And so developing the women and talking about the women and putting them in important positions. And, it's the women who explained to Simon what he wasn't man enough to stand and watch after the crucifixion. And when he comes back to the safe house before Jesus is resurrected, he has to come back and rejoin the women. And so it's Martha and Mary and her sister and Mary Magdalene and Mary, Jesus's mother. They are the ones who tell Simon what he couldn't face on his own, the details. And so, I'm convinced that they helped color those details in for him. And so those characters were very, very important to us. And so
Yeah.
I think I think we bring them into the story in a way that's very important.
Yeah, I admired her support and her understanding. I mean, not a lot of women will put up with
Right.
her husband being gone that long, but no, she was very supportive. I put myself now. Would I be okay with this? I kept asking myself. He was gone for quite a
Right.
while.
Right. I
So
got to tell
Yeah,
you, Tina,
but
if
well,
go ahead.
Jesus lived in their house too, though. That helps a little
mhm,
bit. And so she liked him very much, and he did just save your mother's life. And
Right.
everybody
right.
in the village loves him and admires him. So when he comes in one day and says Jesus wants me to go with him, and oh, and by the way, what did he do today? He created a miracle fish catch. They catch fish for a living, so he just filled up our bank account, so to speak.
Yeah,
And now he says he wants me to go with him. It makes it a little more relatable, doesn't it?
it does.
Now what are you
It
now
does.
what are you going to say? We just caught 6 months worth of fish. He cured your mother. Everybody in town loves him, and he wants me to go with him. Okay, now it sounds a little different, and you can say, okay, well, do you know when you'll be back or what's going to happen?
Nope.
Well, how about send word, and you know, but she was obviously set up to be supportive, and Jesus had laid a predicate, which I think really helps people understand the story. I fully believe that that's a crucial part of it, that he didn't ask them to do things that are so impossible you can't imagine doing them. He's not asking us to do that, and he understands when it's hard for us.
That's true. That's true.
Which, which I think why it was so important to get that timeline accurate, right? Because
Yeah.
once you realize, all right, he just filled this boat with fish. Somebody runs into the dunes, says, "Hey, Emer is sick." He goes up to the house, he heals her. It makes sense, right? It suddenly starts to make sense as we
They all
look at it.
connect.
Yeah, they
It
really
all
do,
connects. It
and they
all
just
connects.
build. Right.
And here's an interesting question. I'll start with you, Stephen, if you both want to answer.
Sure.
It's from Kathy, and she's asking, "Tell us what you learned immediately of Peter."
I think it's hard, right? I mean, it was the way that he acted and reacted. It wasn't difficult to learn what this man's heart was, right? There's a line that we use in the book where, and I forget who said it, but basically, Peter has a head full of rocks, but a heart made of gold, right? And for me, once you realize it doesn't matter the flaws that he has, I mean, when you start to learn where this man's heart is and the way that he protects his brothers, his fellowship, the way that, he's this self-appointed protector of Jesus, right? So once I learned that and said, oh, listen, this guy, he's setting up security, right, for Jesus, or thinks that he is, right? I just, it's not hard to take a shine to him. I mean, it just isn't, you know what I mean? and you have to love them.
Yeah, you can't help. Anything else you want to add to that, Jerry?
No, I think that really shines a light on who Simon Peter is. He's a great guy, full of flaws, but he's a very average guy, and he's that's what we keep using the word relatable, but he is relatable, and it's no accident. Jesus knew exactly what he was doing. He chose someone that we can all relate to, and lovable, including all of his flaws. And you just see in the book, you hear, Jesus just shakes his head sometimes and goes, "See, Simon, Simon."
Right.
And I gotta add, he's good looking from a women's perspective. Now that I've seen the cover, he's not
I've
bad.
heard that.
looking.
I've heard that. Yeah, he's a nice looking guy.
Yeah, I will
My,
second that one.
you guys don't know, but lots of people that I know say, "Oh, he's Adam, isn't he? He's my son. He looks just like my son." So my son's a handsome young man too, but he is a good looking.
I saw the cover and I'm like, well, hello there. Very good looking guy.
That doesn't
Not a
hurt.
bad way to sell a book.
No.
Yeah, put the handsome dude up there. I want to put this comment up from Kathy. We named our puppy Simon Peter after his disciple because he seemed to question every command we offered.
That's fantastic. I love that.
That's very cute. I love that.
But I bet he's a lovable rascal.
Lovable, yeah. It sounds like my Jack. My Jack is a challenge. I got to say that one. He's a puppy. He was not a puppy now. He's 9 months old, but oh my goodness, the energy of his is off the charts. It really is. Okay. I want to put up some more questions. This is a random one from 1 second. I'm sorry. I hit the wrong button. From who's this from? From Lori. She would like to know. I'll start with you, Jerry. Which authors are you inspired by?
Oh, geez. I really would struggle to come up with a good answer for that. I read mostly historical books, and so as far as authors of fiction and modern authors, I'm not terribly good at that. I'm more of a consumer of news and history and research, and so probably defer to Stephen on that one.
Okay. All right, Stephen.
So I read a lot of fiction, right? Because I write fiction, right? So you need to get in the same pool that you're swimming in. So everybody from Stephen King to some of the greats. I look at, to me, literary perfection would be Harper Lee, To Kill a Mockingbird. A couple years ago, I Kristen Hanna, who is just an amazing author. So I've been reading her stuff. But my problem is, the more that I write and the deeper I get into this career, the slower I read, right? Because I love turn of phrase. And I like to see the way authors segue and all that other stuff. But I think whether you're reading a book that's good, bad, however you want to define that, it's a constant lesson for me. I'm a student of the game, so I love all of it. I really do. And some of the best books I've read in the last 10 years are unpublished. But this is a very difficult industry, right? Yeah, very difficult industry. So, for those that and it takes a little bit of courage, right, to stand up and be vulnerable like this and throw it out into the world, which I think I take great pride in this book for that. I mean, there's no armor here, right? We just let it all loose in this book. Yeah.
How many books have you written, Stephen?
I've written 25, but there's really there's really like 7. So I have 7 national bestsellers, and we're starting to really catch our pace here. But You Will Be Peter. Everybody asks all the time, like, what's the book that you love the most? And the answer to that for any author is the one I'm working on now, right? Because it's the process. But You Will Be Peter is something that's just, this isn't going to go away, right? And Jerry and I were talking about that this morning. I don't doubt 10 years from now, we're going to be on a call similar to this, talking about this book.
Yeah, you probably will be.
It's going to have legs for a long time.
Yeah, like I said, it's a book you can read more than once.
Yeah.
It's like the Bible. People pick up the Bible and read. In fact, I saw Dana DePlancha. She said she reads a part of the Bible. I can't find the comment now. But Dana said that she picks up the Bible and reads a part of it every night before she goes to bed. And this is a book that people, I think, will pick up. Right. And it is also a book you can read a part of. That, you might have a favorite chapter, a favorite paragraph, a favorite dialogue section that sends you a message. This is one of those books that you just want to, reminisce on something you enjoyed about the book. The book now, like I said, this is the eve. It comes out live tomorrow. Few more hours. I'm on the East Coast, right? I'm on the West Coast, so I've got a little bit longer to wait.
Right.
It was midnight my time. What is it? It's 8:40 where you are. You're on the East Coast, right?
East Coast. Yeah, I am. Jerry's in Alabama.
So
Central.
what?
Central.
3.5 hours, and it's going to be live.
Yeah.
Exciting, exciting,
It is
exciting.
exciting.
Are you going to be doing anything to celebrate?
There's a couple of Facebook events that I'll be helping to host tomorrow. And for me, it's it's a lot of the local stuff. But I'll tell you, we've been building the dam for a while, right? So tomorrow we get to open that dam up and let this thing happen. So I'm excited.
I'm excited for you too.
Yeah.
And right now it's on pre-order. The pre-order is available. I think I saw it correctly. Was Kindle and hardback and paperback are all available for pre-order, correct?
Yeah, no paperback, just hardcover. Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Hardcover and Kindle.
And Kindle. When will the paperback
You
come
will
out?
be Peter.com.
There
You
we
will
go.
be Peter.com is the order page. And your favorite order platform, whether it's Amazon, Books a Million, Barnes and Noble, you name it, they're all available.
All there. And then the paperback, when will that be available?
There's no plans from the publisher to print
So we're gonna
paperback.
okay.
No, it'll be hardback. I think this book's going to be one that people are going to want to put on their shelf and read again and again. And so that's the plan.
Okay. And did you say audio too?
Yes, but it's not available yet. It'll be about 2 to 3 more weeks before audio's out. Still getting the final answers on that from my agent. But yes, there will be an audio book.
An audiobook.
Hopefully by the end of the month. Certainly in time for Christmas.
And I saw last week that it hit #1 on Amazon.
Yes.
So congratulations to that. Now it also won an award, correct?
Yeah, it's actually we won in Paris and New England. And here's the cool part, right? Like I've been doing this for a long time, 30 years. It's almost unheard of for a book to win top honors at a book festival as a manuscript. And this won twice, right? So, it's just, to me, it's amazing that even, the judges in these festivals acknowledged, the importance of this story.
Congratulations. And I'm sure it's going to get many more.
Well,
I can just
we hope. We
How
hope.
about movies? Are we going to see a movie of Simon Peter?
Oh, yes. Yes. That was the original goal, not to sound too presumptuous, but I absolutely have the script in my head and see the movie and set out. Frankly, I kept running into screenwriters who said, if you don't have a book, then you're going to have to go write the book. So I said, okay, I'll write a book. And the research led to, the beginnings of the book. And I didn't answer correctly earlier. You asked me about my favorite author. It'd have to be Stephen Manchester because he's been such a great fit. But I also referred to another book by William Thomas Walsh called The Apostle Peter. And for those who want to really dig in, if you really want to see the details behind it, when I first began writing this manuscript, I footnoted it. And then my agent and Stephen both told me that you don't footnote a novel. But the point is, the research is there. The biblical references, the references to the history of Josephus, the historical Jewish record that goes behind it was all very much there. And so, yes, there's absolutely a movie of this guy's life, because what more fascinating person, what better story to put on the big screen and let people see it unfold than the life of this man who had such a huge impact on the world and all of his friends and his family.
I want to see who they cast for Peter. He's got to be good looking and handsome.
I wanted to share this, Tina.
Oh, yes.
This is so part of the brilliance of the book, the way that it was set up. This is fiction, right? So we're telling a story, but it's also it's set up as a historical biography, right? So there's a table of contents. It's broken down into 3 parts, and there are maps at the beginning of each of the 3 parts that show you exactly where they went, right? So
I love maps.
I do too, but it brings more legitimacy, more credibility. Like when I look at a book like this in hardback, a cover like this, the maps, the table of contents, I mean, there's going to be people that question whether or not this is nonfiction or fiction, right? But
it's
really
borderline.
Yeah.
It's true.
Especially a book you
It-
want to keep on that bookshelf.
Right.
That's, you know, you're
Well,
not going to give it away to the Salvation Army or whatever. This is one. This is a keeper. This is
it is a
definitely
keeper.
a keeper. It really
You
is.
want to hand it down,
And I like what.
and you know,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jerry.
well, I was going to say that the maps and some of those events came out of my trip to Israel, which is actually the manuscript was largely finished. And Stephen and I were talking about it. I said, I can't finish this book till I go make sure I've got it right. I got to smell the smells. I've got to hear the wind. I got to see the crops. I've got to,
You got to
dip
be
my
like,
I got to be there. I got to make sure. And we came back, and I don't know, Stephen, will we spent another month polishing and adding details and going through, and then working with the copy editors right at the end. I thought, I keep seeing this picture in my mind because I went there and I hired an archaeologist, made sure that he took me to the locations where I could put my feet on the ground and see the scene and know that I'm looking at the same vision that they would have seen in order to get the descriptions right, the directions where the moon comes up, where the wind blows in the spring. All of that needed to be there, and I needed to be sure of it. But when we got back, and the last thing, honestly, was adding the maps. And I thought, I just have to include this because I see it in my head. And now that I've been to Israel and I really have a picture, I want to help the reader go there with us. It's important. It takes 3 days to walk from Capernaum to Cana. You don't just pop over there or ride a horse. It takes 3 days. Those are important details to let you picture the walk and picture the experience.
Yeah, the time frame, the time length. And like I said, I absolutely love maps, and I still love paper maps. I really, really, when I go to a new town, the first thing I do is I go find a physical map because I can open it up and just see the whole thing instead of scrolling on my silly phone. I want to see the whole picture. So showing the map in the book gives me that whole picture. I love it. Yeah, I really do. And I want to put this comment up from Lisa. She says, I truly think this book will bring a better understanding to many non-Bible readers. And I think, she's absolutely, because of the style of the writing, number one, and the fact that it's presented as a fiction story based on, biographical fiction too. So I think your audience is going to be not only younger, but like she says, non-Bible readers too.
Right.
This book is 100% aimed at a general market audience. It's obviously going to be bought up and enjoyed by Christian faith-based people who really just want one more detail, one more. But I tell people all the time, if you care enough to have ever read one of the Founding Fathers books, very impactful people, mind you, I've read them all and I enjoyed them all. That's what this is intended to be. It's to introduce you to the characters, and focus on the central character of Simon Peter, who founded a movement that's the most impactful and enduring institution in the history of mankind. 2,000 years later, it's arguably the most influential institution today in the world and has been for 2,000 years. Nothing really compares to it. So how did that happen, and who were these people, is a pretty interesting thing to explore.
It's amazing. It is. And then Lisa, I'm going through some more questions. Lisa would like to know, who has been your hardest character to write about, and why was that? I'll start with you, Stephen.
Oh, I would have to say Jesus in this, right? Because the Gospels are the Gospels, right? And Jerry and I agreed very early on, if he said it, we don't change a word. If he did it, we don't change a word. So Jerry uses the word a lot, inferences, right? So, if something happens to somebody, then you can infer the fact that Peter experienced this. He goes back to Capernaum. Yeah, he's going to use his wife as a a soundboard, right? But with Jesus, to get into, you know what I mean? Like, we're not doing it from his point of view. So to add richness and texture there, it was, I don't want to say, we kind of stood away from it, right? It really was about Peter's point of view, right? And the way that he saw Jesus. It wasn't about, you know what I mean? I think we developed Jesus as a human, character. But as far as adding things that weren't in the gospel, to me, that was the toughest thing. To stay away from.
Yeah, I think I agree. The care with which we try to handle Jesus is maybe another way to look at it, because
Sure.
the inferences that you might go between a brother and his, a pair of brothers or a best friend about how would you react in a certain scene, that's a little easier to work with. But Jesus required, I think, such care because people have very strong feelings and beliefs, and there's a lot of information, and most everything ever published focuses directly on Jesus and the meaning of his life.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't want to get in anywhere close to adding or subtracting or changing who people see and believe and understand Jesus to be. And so I think that was maybe not the hardest to do, but the one I think we probably took the most care with.
Yeah,
It was
I agree.
That makes a lot of sense because everyone has their own opinions and their own ideas of Jesus. Everyone, it's like reading a book. I can pick up a book, read a book, someone else will read that book and look at it completely different, and have a completely different meaning for them versus what it did for me. And it's the same for Jesus. But you have to write this book where you're not offending anybody,
Right.
or their opinions of Jesus. And I think you nailed it when the way you described it.
Well, just to add a little, we really tried to make sure that Jesus was a word I learned in the process, ecumenical, and that the whole story remains that, which means in the faith of the church is the only things that are included are the things that everyone agrees on, whatever sect or whatever denomination someone may adhere to within Christianity. We wanted to make sure that the presentation of the story and their experience with Jesus and the way Jesus comes back to them fits their belief set and doesn't sound like somebody else's or a denomination or a particular branch of Christianity. Because I think it's really remarkable. Those things didn't exist in the day of Peter. There was no diverse group of churches. There were beginning to be, and if you read the rest of the New Testament, Paul spends his whole career talking to them and trying to get everybody in line. You Galatians and you Thessalonians, let me tell you how this is. So that's kind of Paul's job. Peter is the central figure. He's the George Washington. Nobody's ever going to question what his job is. His job is to be in charge of the church. That's what Jesus said. And as long as he's alive, that's it. He's the central guy.
Here's the final say. Karen wants to know, will the book be a standalone or turn into a series? Stephen?
Well, I got to tell you, I don't think, you don't do a sequel on this, right? There's no way. To me, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end to this book, right? That being said, there's more to tell on Peter, right? And there's more to tell on the other apostles, especially if people really lean into this type of storytelling. Who knows who knows what's going to happen in the future. I think there's probably, and Jerry will probably agree with me, there's probably one more book on Peter. But I don't want to say that in a way that, this is a cliffhanger, because it wasn't written that way.
No, it was not.
No.
And
that wasn't our intention, right? And if we get, if we go from, from where this ends on, then I think there's another book there, right?
Yeah, there are other characters that deserve full treatment. John comes to mind, Matthew, Luke, who interestingly enough is not one of the apostles, although he's a saint. And Luke never actually met Jesus. He comes along after the church is up and running and underway. So there's a number of other members of the troop and the team that live very full and different lives, and their path and their stories probably have a story to tell. John was there for every bit of it. He has a different perspective. He outlives Peter by decades. His best friend. So each of these events in this book would look different if told from John's perspective, and that's something I've thought about, and Stephen and I are going to explore. But series might be the wrong word, but there's a lot of material here, I think, that is worth exploring to bring these people to life.
Oh, I'm sold. I think you should write about all of them and just do this for the next 10 years. You'll be set. Seriously.
Yeah.
It'll
If
be
it takes
interesting.
10 years per book, I don't know. That's
No,
Yeah, right.
I say like 5 books. If you put, you get each character, come on. I think you can do this. You can
Well,
do
I have to tell you, Tina, and I'm being, this is going to sound funny, but I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not sure we're going to have a choice at some point, right? Like we're on the bus, but I don't think we're driving the bus, right? We're going to see where this goes and where that takes us down the road,
I can see it. I believe it's going to do extremely well, and readers are going to want more.
Right.
I think, and it sounds like you two have a fabulous partnership as far as co-authors go.
Yeah.
So, that's a plus right there. It really is. Are you working on anything right now, Stephen, or are you taking a break?
I'm just finishing up a book called The Ledger, which takes place in a prison in Massachusetts in 1995. But this
Oh
has
wow!
been, yeah, and I'll be honest with you. I was on that, and then I met Jerry. That went to the back burner, right? And we got this done, and I put all my time and energy into this book, and still continue to, we're promoting, and we're going to walk this thing as far as we can. But I think I have a rough draft for the next book.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I
Yeah,
mean, the
and I'll
priority.
answer. Stephen and I haven't decided how this is going to come together, but I've done so much research into these biblical characters that one of the things, like I just alluded to Luke, what a fascinating story. So I've written the outline of a 4-part about Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Not necessarily biographical, but
Right.
in a presentation of the 4 writers of the Gospels. Who were they? Why did they write? When did they write? Put the story in order for someone who's a real student of the Bible that would like to understand more about where did these books come from? When were they
Mhm.
written? Who were they? What was their motive? So I'm pretty far into that at the moment, but I'm with Stephen. 100% of our effort, 100% of my time is where it needs to be, and that
Right.
that may only be for my personal edification. I'm enjoying the research, but maybe someday put it all down and share it. We'll see.
You got quite a few ideas there, and if it does roll into another book, I gotta have you back on.
Oh yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely.
We'd
And I
love
want to
to.
put up this comment. Here you go. I like this comment. Grace says, think I will order one. It sounds so good. Here
Yeah,
you go.
Grace, I hope you enjoy it.
yeah. The perfect stocking stuffer, right,
There you
Grace?
go. And then this is from Lisa. She says, Stephen, the menu is so good.
Thank you, Lisa.
You
Thank you.
are welcome. These hours go by so quick. I'm looking at the time already.
That's
It's
crazy.
the top of the hour.
Right.
But this has been a fascinating chat. We do have to wrap it up, unfortunately. But before we wrap it up, I do want to ask you, Stephen. I like to ask this question to all the authors. You've written 25 books. You have a fantastic career. I admire you. I admire your success. What advice can you give to a writer that would like to become a published author?
I would say integrity, right? So write for yourself. Write something that if it never gets published, you're happy that you did, right? Because I mean, this is a very fickle industry. It just is, right? So it shouldn't be based on somebody else's opinion. As I said earlier, some of the best work I've read is unpublished, right? So don't go into it thinking, you know, I need to make X amount of money. I mean, if you're looking to make money, then maybe pick up a paper route, right? But if you love the idea of writing and putting something down that you can share with people, then pursue it and do it for you, or your children or your family. Do not, that other stuff will come if it's meant to be. But enjoy it. Enjoy the process. It's not an easy process, but enjoy it.
Great advice. Wonderful advice.
Thank you.
And you are doing a giveaway. So I would like either one of you to just tell our readers what the giveaway is.
I think we're going to do a signed hardcover. Yeah,
Oh,
for
nice.
somebody in domestic U.S. if that
Right.
works.
Yeah, US only because of the shipping. And you've asked me to pick a winner for you, which I would gladly
Yes,
do. I
yes,
will go through our audience after the live, and you are in my group. So I will tag you when the winner is announced in a couple of hours.
sure,
And then I will email you the winner's details so you can ship the book.
excellent.
And this will be signed by both of you?
Sure,
Well, we
we'll
need,
figure it out.
yeah,
How did it work
absolutely.
out?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, you'll figure it
We
out.
need to get that done for sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, this has been fantastic. And also, I'm going to do my giveaway. Most of you here watching this know how this works. If you can go to my author page and share this page, this video, wherever you want to share it, on your favorite book groups, on your homepage, on Instagram, but do tag me so I know that you shared this, and then you'll be entered into the Amazon $5 gift card giveaway. So please share and tag me. And Jerry and Stephen, this has been a great chat.
Thank you. We have really
Thank you,
appreciate it,
Tina.
Tina. Yeah.
I really enjoyed this. I highly recommend this book. You all should read this book. Keep it on your bookshelf because you will want to read it again. And in a few hours, it's going to go live. So you have a little bit more time to pre-order. But otherwise, congratulations again. And go celebrate. Few more hours. Go celebrate.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Tina.
you.
Appreciate you.
All right. And everybody here, thank you so much for joining us. I will see you in the group.